This is the Louie Tee Network.
In the L.A.B room.
Exclusive.
The market.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I am your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the program. Weekend wrap-up of NFL free agency, otherwise known here in the lab room as
The market.
So, I want to wrap up this weekend. I told you if there wasn't a lot of moves made in any one particular day, that I would just let the moves accumulate and then come back and bring you what had happened over the course of those days. Well, here I am back as I promised. It's Monday, St. Patrick's Day. You can't pinch me. I got on 2 tones of green just in case you didn't like this green. Got on more green. So does anybody even do that anymore? Does anybody even give out pinches? Hey, I'm not 7. Don't pinch me. But I got cleaned up. I feel good. A lot of moves happened over the weekend. You know how this goes here in the lab room, aka free agency, aka the market. Look, check your stuff, man. Check your merchandise. Check it twice if necessary. Make sure that everything is nice, because in this market, there are no exchanges, no returns. All sales are final. So make sure what you have in your cart and what you're taking to the checkout is exactly the item that you want. So, you know how this goes. You know the rules to the game. Let's play. It's NFL free agency. Let's do a little bit of shopping here in the market. So, days 4 through 7 in the market. Let's get started. New York Football Giants have been extremely busy throughout free agency, and they continue that trend over those course of those days. Jameel McClain, finally, someone in the Giants front office has admitted a problem. And we all know the first step in the road to recovery is admitting you have a problem. And finally, the Giants are starting to attack the elephant in the room, known as their linebacker position. It has been funky for years. And finally, they got John Beeson back, and he made a huge impact on their defense last year. Well, they bring him back. Now they go out and get Jameel McClain from the Baltimore Ravens. I think that guy has some good football in him. So they're starting to upgrade the linebacker position. Good for the New York Football Giants. So he's going to be on their football team in 2014. You look at Quentin Demps. I talked about Kansas City and the significance of their special teams return units a season ago. They were the best in the league. And when you play the type of defense that they did, and you get the kind of returns that they did from Dexter McCluster and Quentin Demps, it makes you that much stronger of a football team. Well, Dexter McCluster is now in Tennessee. Quentin Demps is now a New York Football Giant. He is going to help their special teams return unit tremendously. He was one of the best guys on kickoffs last season, averaging a robust 30 yards per kickoff return, most in the National Football League. So this guy is going to help them immediately in their kickoff return units team. And so Quentin Demps, huge addition to their roster. And don't forget, this guy is not bad as a safety. I think he had 4 interceptions, 3 at least last season. So, hey, he doubles as a return guy, but the guy can play safety as well, like the move for the New York Football Giants. You look at Walter Thurman III. Here's a guy coming over from the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, can play the slot cover corner position better than most in the National Football League. It's a great pickup for the Giants. It's a 1-year, $3.5 million deal, however. And what that deal says is prove it. Not prove that you can play in this league, because I think the Giants and the other 31 teams around the league understand that Walter Thurman III can play the cornerback position. They're asking him to prove that he can play the cornerback position, all the while staying clean off the field. And so they're asking him to prove that he can not only be a great player on the field, but off it, he can be a model citizen as well. If he can do that, he'll probably be looking to get paid next season. Great pickup for the Giants, however, in 2014. You look at Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. Here's a guy, DRC, and 5 years, $39 million, so you're looking at about 8 per. And he's one of the better corners in the National Football League, had a stellar 2013 season, one of his finest seasons in his career. And he's going to help bolster this Giants secondary, no doubt about it. And the Jets and the Giants were both battling back and forth for his services. Giants end up winning out. And he's familiar with this division, having played with the Philadelphia Eagles just a mere 2 seasons ago. So this guy is no stranger to the NFC East. He's coming back to the division, this time as a New York Football Giant. Huge signing for the New York Giants. This defense is getting better, and he's going to help them be a better unit in 2014. You look at the San Diego Chargers. San Diego Superchargers making a couple of signings. Both guys were on this roster a season ago. Richard Marshall coming back to play some corner position. Wasn't great, wasn't mind-boggling or earth-shattering, but just a solid corner that's going to return to this Chargers team. Chargers could use some help at the cornerback position, so bringing back Richard Marshall was not the worst thing in the world. You look at another guy, Siyi Ajira-Tutu, one of the best names in all of the National Football League. And it seems like this guy just can't stay away from San Diego. He had that breakout about 3-4 years ago when the Chargers had a rash of injuries. He ended up being one of the only receivers to be consistent in that season. Then he parlays that into a deal with the Carolina Panthers. It doesn't work out. And guess where he goes back? Goes back home to San Diego. The Chargers get some mileage out of him again. He catches a game-winning touchdown against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. And then they say, hey, we're done with you again. And only to see this guy come back once again. They can't shake him and he can't shake them. Siyi Ajira-Tutu back in San Diego. You look at the Green Bay Packers. B.J. Raji, 1 year, $4 million deal. I talked about this in the preview for the Green Bay Packers. As far as B.J. Raji is concerned, yes, he had a down season last year. Yes, I think that B.J. Raji was looking for a long-term deal with some club, whether it be the Packers or someone else. But his play last year did not warrant him getting a long-term deal with anyone, especially the Green Bay Packers. And so he went out, he looked, sniffed around the market, didn't find any potential suitors, and said, hey, can I come back home? The Packers said, hey, man, you can come back home. 1 year, $4 million. Sounds about right. B.J. Raji looking to prove that he is worth a long-term deal next year in free agency. You look at Julius Peppers. This was the big signing here. 3 years, $30 million for J. Pep. Now, if we're getting the Julius Peppers from last year, then this is an egregious deal here. If we're getting the J. Pep of old, the J. Pep that can get you double-digit sacks, the J. Pep that's dominant in the run game and a game disruptor, a game wrecker, then yes, this deal is worth every single penny. Now, I looked at DeMarcus Ware as being a better fit for Green Bay, coming off the edge opposite of Clay Matthews, but you look at the Packers and they have Nick Perry. I don't know if you want to step on anybody's toes. So I guess Julius Peppers, who is more scheme diverse, can play in a 4-3-3-4 defense, can play the 5 technique, could probably even step outside and play some outside linebacker in some coverages. It's so scheme diverse that he fits in this Green Bay Packers scheme. And if what I'm hearing is true, if there's any kind of validity to what I was hearing last year with Julius Peppers being disinterested and him needing to be reinvigorated, well, here's your opportunity. You're on a really good team with a great franchise with the best quarterback in the game. What more do you need? You got a chance to finally put a ring on your finger. You got to go out and play your best football. This is it. I think J. Pep has everything that he needs to go out and perform at a high level. I want to see what he does because I actually thought last year was what he was going to become if he were to continue to play football. I thought his career is on a decline, and I didn't think he was injured or anything like that. I just thought, hey, the guy's getting old, and it's starting to catch up with him. Much like, some of these guys that we see in their later stages of their career, their talents and their attributes start to wane. I didn't see that with DeMarcus Ware. I thought he was more of a guy that just was banged up and he needed to be healthy. Once healthy, I think he's still a double-digit sack getter in this league. I don't know about J-Pep. He's got to show me that he's the J-Pep of old, because that's a big contract for a guy that I just don't know about anymore. So we'll see. And you ask yourself, what's the difference between that deal and the DeMarcus Ware deal? Nothing. I mean, there's really no difference. I just feel like DeMarcus has more in the tank left than J-Pep. We'll see, though. I could be wrong. That's $8.5 million next season, so that's a lot of money. J-Pep better step up, but the Packers could be getting an animal on defense, and if he's anything like the old J-Pep, the Green Bay Packers are that much closer to getting back to the Super Bowl. You look at the Miami Dolphins. Cortland Finnegan, 2 years, $11 million for the most pesky player in the National Football League. He's a guy that still has a little bit left in the tank. I'm not sure if Cortland Finnegan is what he used to be. Jeff Fisher cut him loose. He wasn't worth the money that he was going to be paid in St. Louis. And is he a starter anymore? I'm not sure. We'll find out together in Miami. I think they're going to look to start him out there. At 2 years, $11 million, it sounds like he's starting to me. So we'll definitely see if Cortland Finnegan still has enough left in the tank to be a key contributor on the Miami Dolphins football team. But that's a nice signing for the Miami Dolphins in their secondary. Look at the Tennessee Titans. Wesley Woodyard, 4 years, $16 million for one of the best coverage linebackers in the National Football League. Look, he's not that stout of the point of attack in the run game. Not a guy that's going to lay the hammer down like a Brandon Spikes in the run game. But I tell you what, you're looking for a guy on 3rd and 7 to cover the other team's tight end or to catch that back on a flare route. You're talking about Wesley Woodyard, one of the best in the business in the passing game at the linebacker position. Titans are paying this guy to go out and make sure that he can cover the other team's tight end, can cover the other team's running back out of the backfield, and Wesley Woodyard can do that. He's going to be a nice addition to the Titans linebacker corps. You look at Michael Orr, 4 years, $20 million. That is a lot of money for a guy that struggled mightily last season in the Baltimore Ravens scheme. And it's all about fits, and maybe this guy just needs a change of scenery. Sometimes you get at a point where you're just stale where you are and you just need fresh air. And sometimes it just means moving on to the next opportunity. For Michael Orr, maybe Tennessee is a fresh start, a new beginning, and a better situation for him, because in Baltimore, I thought he struggled. Left, right tackle, it didn't matter. He struggled at both. He was not good in the run game, one of the worst offensive linemen in the run game, and that was part of the reason why Ray Rice had nowhere to run for the Baltimore Ravens. And so I'm looking for Michael Orr to be a lot better. And at 4 years, $20 million, the Tennessee Titans are looking for Michael Orr to be a lot better. And remember, they had the tag team of Ruse and Stewart for about a decade, and David Stewart was released, cap number too high. He's thinking about retiring now. And so they're looking for someone to come in. And I talked about this on the Titans free agency preview, that they needed to interject a little bit of youth into that tackle position, because from guard to guard, they're as young as it gets and as talented as it gets in the National Football League. And so they needed to infuse some life, some young youth and exuberance into that tackle position. Here comes Michael Orr. Let's see if he can get it together and man up the right tackle position for these Tennessee Titans. The New England Patriots, they've made some gaudy moves over the last couple of days. And here's another move in the long list of moves that have the Patriots looking like a front runner in the AFC to get to the Super Bowl. Brandon Browner, 3 years, $17 million. And so you tag him up with Darrelle Revis, they're going to make one of the better cornerback tandems in the entire National Football League. Now, again, we're going to have to wait until at least week number 5 to see these guys on display, as Browner will be suspended for the first 4 games of the National Football League season. But he's a big, long, rangy, physical corner. We know the league is moving in that direction. He was one of the guys that kind of made that kind of corner trendy. And he's one of those guys, though, that can't afford to lose a step, because he was never that fast to begin with. He's a big physical guy but I feel like he's very grabby, and I'm not a big Brandon Browner guy. We'll see how he fares in New England, but I'll tell you this much. If he's allowed to get away with what he got away with in Seattle, this secondary in New England is going to be tough to deal with because he was jacking up receivers, tossing them around like rag dolls, picking off passes, and if Revis is allowed to do that on one side and he's allowed to do it on the other side, how the hell are you going to throw the football on the New England Patriots? Good luck. You look at Julian Edelman. I'm glad to see him back in New England because I don't think anyone can truly appreciate Julian Edelman the way the New England Patriots can and use him to his fullest abilities. Now, the way he was brought back to the team, do I appreciate that? Absolutely not. You know how I feel about the way the Patriots do business, but when it's all said and done, he's back in New England where I think he belongs, and so it's a good look for Julian Edelman. He tested free agency. I don't know if he didn't like what he heard. I don't know what kind of money he was looking for, or if he just decided, hey, for the money that you guys are trying to pay me, I can go back to New England for that. I don't know what the situation was. I don't know what he was looking for. All I know is that he went to a couple of teams, Cleveland, San Francisco, and then he said, hey, New England, is that deal still on the table? And they said, you know what? Yeah, it's still on the table, Julian. You want to come back? Yeah, I want to come home. And now he's home. Julian Edelman back with the Patriots. That's a wonderful move for this Patriots football team. I like this move just as much as I like the last two. Brandon LaFell, ex-Carolina Panther receiver, 3 years, $11 million for a guy that I think is up and coming. Sure, he has lapses in concentration sometimes, but I tell you what, he's a guy that's going to help this Patriots offense immensely. And look, this is why the Patriots are becoming dangerous, because now they're starting to add weapons to the repertoire. You could always point to some kind of weakness with this Patriots team. In the past, they didn't have a run game. Well, now they can run the football. Then you could say, oh, well, this defense stinks. Now they got Revis and they got Browner. Then you go, oh, well, they don't have any receivers. Brady doesn't have anybody to throw it. Now he's got Edelman. Now he's got Brandon LaFell. He's going to have Gronk back. You see some of the talented guys starting to emerge and guys like Tompkins. And so I'm just saying this Patriots team is becoming more dangerous by the day. And you can see the back and forth between Denver and New England. You understand what's going on here. This is some New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox type of thing where, hey, you go out and get a guy, I'll go get two. You go out and get another guy, I'll go out and get a guy. So it's like they're trying to go back and forth. You see the arms race really at its full out extent with these two teams. They're going back and forth, tit for tat. And we'll talk about what the Denver Broncos have done to kind of combat the Revis and the Browner move here in a second. But Brandon LaFell to the Patriots gives Brady another big, long, lengthy, athletic, talented target to throw the football to. And another Carolina Panther bites the dust. You look at the Detroit Lions. Brandon Pettigrew, 4 years, $16 million. They said they were really interested in bringing him back. They made good on what they said. He's back in the fold. My only knock on Brandon Pettigrew, because this guy is highly athletic, very versatile as a tight end, can block, can catch the football, is that he has lapses in concentration where he just drops the football or he fumbles the football. For me, he puts the ball on the ground too often, whether it's a drop or he's fumbling it. If he can just concentrate, stop letting the ball get out of his hands, whether it's a drop or a fumble, this guy is dangerous. But for me, the lapses in concentration, it just does something to me. And I don't really like that. But again, that's their stuff. And it's nothing like holding on to your stuff. He's a Lion, and he's going to remain that at least for the next 2 to 3 years minimum. Brandon Pettigrew back in Detroit. Look at the Baltimore Ravens. Darryl Smith, 4 years, $16 million. Had to happen, needed to happen, it's going to happen. And look, he was the heart and soul of this Baltimore Ravens defense last year. And I told you that I thought he upgraded the Mike linebacker for this Baltimore Ravens football team. And I didn't stutter. And look, if you've been watching the Ravens, you're a fan of the Ravens, you know that Ray Lewis was hanging on for dear life in 2012 when you won the Super Bowl. So Darryl Smith coming in and upgrading that Mike linebacker position in 2013, not a far reach at all. And so I thought he came in, made plays, picked passes off, was the coach of this defense, got everybody lined up, was a veteran presence in the locker room and on the field. This guy had to be back. Ravens got it right. Daryl Smith, 4 years, $16 million, is going to be back on this football team, and rightfully so. You look at another Smith. This time, we're talking about Steve Smith. Smitty coming back. 3 years, $12 million. So he's not back with the Panthers. He's going to finish his career out as a Baltimore Raven. He's got a legitimate shot at winning a Super Bowl title. And let's see what Steve has left. I think he has a lot left. And because the Panthers doubted him and didn't allow him to finish his career with them, he's going to really play with the chip on his shoulder. I love the move for the Ravens. I told you that they were all over this guy from the start of free agency, and so it happened. He's now a Baltimore Raven. I can't wait to see Schmitty having cats icing up. So we'll see what he does in a purple uniform. You look at the Oakland Raiders. These guys have been extremely busy. And after the first day and the big mishap, or as I like to call it, the Roger Saffold snafu, the Oakland Raiders have been on a tear. Reggie McKenzie has been pushing, I think, a lot of the right buttons to get this team to be competitive. And look, he doesn't have a lot of room for error. Dennis Allen is on the hot seat, and so is he. So he's been going out and spending a lot of that money and spending it pretty wisely as well. So you look at some of the moves they've made. Terrell Brown, 1 year, $3.5 million. That seems to be the going rate this year for prove-it deals. If you're looking to prove it, then you get a 1 year, $3.5 million deal. That seems to be the going rate around the league. Doesn't matter what position you play. If I want you to prove it to me, it's a 1 year, $3.5 million deal. And Terrell Brown coming over from San Francisco, not going far, still in the Bay Area, just a different football team. And so Terrell Brown, I think, is a really solid corner. I like Terrell Brown a lot. Let's see how he fares out in Oakland. Prove it to me. You want a big deal? Prove to me that you deserve one. I don't know if he wants to come back to Oakland after this year, but Terrell Brown looking to really cash in on a huge payday potentially next season. You look at Antonio Smith, 2 years, $9 million for a guy that can get pressure on the quarterback. Sure, he's at the ripe age of 32, but the guy can still get pressure in this league. And he's versatile. I like his scheme diversity because he can play in a 4-3 defense. We've seen him in that kind of setup. And we've seen him get pressure from the 5 technique in a 3-4 defense. So the guy is scheme diverse, can get pressure on the quarterback, can line up at defensive tackle, can line up at defensive end, wherever you need him. The guy is stout at the point of attack in the run game. I love Antonio Smith. I love the signing for the Oakland Raiders. I love some of these moves Reggie McKenzie is making. What about Usama Young? Here's a guy that was with the Raiders a season ago. I said in the preview that he needed to be back. I thought Raiders fans wanted him back. And I thought he performed well at the safety position. They used him in a number of ways, blitzing the quarterback. Thought he played well. Raiders must have thought so as well because Usama Young is back in Oakland. You look at James Jones. This was a huge get for the Raiders again. I don't think they have a number 1 receiver. Now, is James Jones a number 1 receiver? I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you this much. He's an upgrade over every receiver they have currently on their roster. So if he's not a number 1, he's close enough for the Raiders. That's going to allow everyone to fit into their proper slots. And that's a big get. And keep in mind, remember, there is a connection here. Reggie McKenzie was the guy who was on the staff that helped draft him into Green Bay. So there is a connection here between Reggie McKenzie and James Jones going back to the Green Bay Packer days. So that might have had some influence on him ending up in Oakland. And another influence might have been just a dead market for James Jones out there. And so you got to go where you're wanted and you got to follow the money trail. And the money trail led right to Oakland. 3 years, $11.3 million for James Jones. He's found a new home in Oakland. You look at Kevin Booth. This is a really good signing for the Raiders as well. They're really upgrading their offensive line, and it needed some help, okay? They let Jarrett Valdir walk. You got to start making some moves then. If you're going to let a guy like Jarrett Valdir walk, then you got to start doing some other things to kind of supplement this line. And Khalif Barnes, look, Raider fans must love him because he keeps coming back. But you got to upgrade that guard position. And Kevin Booth, the ex-New York Giant, is a guy that can play multiple positions on the offensive line. You need tackle help, he can do that. You need guard help, he can do that. You need center help in a pinch, Kevin Booth can do that. His versatility is why he is probably an Oakland Raider right now. Kevin Booth going to be a Raider. Great move by the Raiders, getting an extremely versatile offensive lineman in Kevin Booth. You look at the Indianapolis Colts, Hakeem Nicks, 1 year, $3.5 million. What did I tell you about these prove-it deals? Okay? Seems like all of them are $3.5 million for 1 year. And there is no bigger prove-it deal in the National Football League this season than the Hakeem Nicks 1 year, $3.5 million prove-it deal in Indy. You think you're a number one receiver? Prove it. Prove it to me. Go out and ball out, because the last 2 seasons, you haven't shown me anything. No resemblance of a number one receiver. Last season, no touchdowns, no pay dirt? Really? No pay dirt equals no pay in free agency. So you got to prove it to me. You think you're a number one? Prove it to me in Indy with Andrew Luck. We'll see what Hakeem Nicks does in Indy. I think it's a wonderful fit. I think it gives the Indianapolis Colts another huge target for Luck to get the football to. In addition to Reginald Wayne coming back and T.Y. Hilton and Kobe Fleener, now you got Hakeem Nicks. And I think this guy is a bona fide one. I think he's the number one. When healthy, this guy is a playmaker. Now he's just got to go out and prove it to everyone else that's doubting him around the National Football League. So we'll see. And I want to talk about him a little bit later in the Carolina Panthers and Dave Gettleman. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on when we go to storylines. Keep that in mind. Kansas City Chiefs, Vance Walker, 3 years, $13 million. Chiefs needed to do something and lost Tyson Jackson earlier in free agency to the Atlanta Falcons. They've been losing players left and right. Their offensive line got decimated. I mean, literally taken apart piece by piece in free agency. They lose Dexter McCluster. They lose another guy that was huge in the returns game in Quentin Demps. So they've been losing players left and right in free agency. About time they get busy. They made some moves earlier in free agency to get some guys now, and I think this is the biggest move they've made thus far in Vance Walker, a guy that can come in, help shore up that front. Remember, they were dominant up front last season against the run and getting to the quarterback. So Vance Walker is a guy that can add to that mix and help them get more pressure on the quarterback as well as stop the run. Good move by Kansas City bringing in Vance Walker from the Oakland Raiders. You look at the Dallas Cowboys, Brandon Weeden coming over from Cleveland. 2 years, $1.23 million deal. Can I ask you this? Why? Why? Why are we doing this? Because, huh? Yeah, I thought so. You don't have an answer. What the hell are you doing, Jerry? What are you doing? You got Kyle Orton, you got Tony Romo. Really? You need to go get Brandon Weeden? For what? I don't know your answer. I don't want to know your answer. Keep it to yourself. Moving right along. Carolina Panthers. Again, this team has struggled this offseason with losing players, the whole Steve Smith situation. It's been rough. The only free agent signing before this stretch, quarterback Derek Anderson. Ouch! So they need to get busy, and they need to get busy quickly. And so Roman Harper, 2 years, $4.5 million, looking to come in and take the place of Mike Mitchell, who left and found himself a deal out in Pittsburgh. Look, Roman Harper, they know this guy. He's been in the division for the last 6 years or so with New Orleans. They've seen him twice a year. They know what his game is about. He's better in the box than out of it. I just don't know what they're looking for from Roman Harper. He's a solid safety, but he is no game changer. And I tell you what, for what Mike Mitchell brought to the table, I don't think Roman Harper can even come close to what Mike Mitchell brought to the table for this team a season ago. But again, when you're strapped for cash and you just need to do something, I guess that's what you do. You get backed into a corner, you go and get Roman Harper. I guess. We'll see. James Dockery, corner, was on this team a season ago. They're bringing him back. Nothing like bringing back your own stuff. And Jason Williams, another guy on this roster last year at the linebacker position, bringing him on back. So Panthers continue to be low-key in this offseason. Aside from the Steve Smith saga and losing half of their roster, they've been pretty low-key in terms of making signings of their own. Philadelphia Eagles get Nate Allen, bring him back onto the team at the safety position. I kind of predicted this one in the free agency preview for the Eagles. I said Nate Allen probably going to be back. There were about 3 safeties up in free agency, and I said of all those 3, Nate Allen is the one you want to bring back, and Nate Allen is the one they decided to bring back. So Nate Allen will be back on the Philadelphia Eagles 2014 roster. Look at the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears bring back Charles Peanut Tillman on a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. How many times have I said that today? No, really, seriously. How many times have I said 1 year, $3.5 million? That seems to be the going rate for a 1-year deal in this offseason, and it's only fitting that Peanut get to finish his career out where it started in Chicago. He's a Bear. He needs to remain a Bear, retire a Bear. And I want to see the Peanut Punch retired in Chicago. Nobody does it better than him. And I think he's a guy that, to me, can make the transition to safety. I would love to see the Bears experiment with that. They've had trouble. I've talked about the Bears playing musical chairs at safety. I'd love to see this guy get a shot at safety, to see how his playmaking ability can transfer over to the safety position. I'd love to see that. We'll see if the Bears experiment with that. I'd love to see Charles Tillman get a shot at safety because he can tackle, he's big, makes plays on the football, and is an extremely smart football player. Love to see him at safety. But either way, he's back on this Bears roster where he belongs. San Francisco 49ers, Chris Cook, ex-Vikings, cornerback, very talented guy. When mentally stimulated and in the game and focused, he's a really good corner. But his problem is off the field, he gets involved in things he has no business getting involved in. It kind of trickles onto the field. Then he starts making mistakes, loses focus, isn't a good football player. So if you could get Chris Cook to just focus in on being a good football player and getting him to do things the right way off the field as well, 49ers could have themselves a gem here in ex-Vikings cornerback Chris Cook. You look at the Cleveland Browns. Benjamin Tate finally signs on the dotted line in Cleveland. This was one of those foregone conclusions in free agency. From the minute free agency started, it's like everybody left Ben Tate alone because they said, he's going to Cleveland. Let's not waste our time talking to him. He's going to Cleveland. And it was a great fit. Kyle Shanahan taking that zone read stretch offense out to Cleveland, and Ben Tate coming from that Gary Kubiak same kind of offensive mentality. And so it just was a perfect fit, like hand in glove. You knew he was going there. My question was, what was taking you so long? Well, I mean, were you looking for something else? He was the best free agent running back. He was the best thing out there. You didn't have any backs. What took you so long? It doesn't matter. 2 years, $7 million for Ben Tate. Now the question is, can he stay healthy? We know the man can play football. That's never been questioned. Can you stay healthy for 16 games? We will find out together in Cleveland. Ben Tate, 2 years, $7 million. Great deal, by the way, for the Cleveland Browns. You look at the Buffalo Bills. Anthony Dixon comes over from the San Francisco 49ers. So he's a fullback slash running back. I think his signing spells the end of the line for Frank Summers in Buffalo. I liked Frank Summers. I thought the Bills would bring him back, but Anthony Dixon is an upgrade over Frank Summers at the fullback position. And this guy gives you extra added value on special teams. Great move by the Buffalo Bills. And Brandon Spikes, 1 year, $3.25 million. If you can't beat him, sign him. He comes over from New England, one of the best run-stuffing linebackers in the National Football League. And so he's looking to prove, and look, another one of those 1 year, $3 million deals. This one isn't 3.5, it's 3.25, but close enough. He's looking to prove I'm not just a 2-down linebacker, okay? I can play all 3 downs. I can play in pass coverage. So what? I don't run a sub 540. Okay? So what? I can play pass coverage too, you know. So he's out to prove that I'm not just a run-stuffing technician in the middle of your defense. I can also play the pass too. If he proves that, he'll get paid next year in free agency. Nice move by the Buffalo Bills. It's a double whammy too, because you strengthen your backing corps, also weaken the New England Patriots. So you feel like you've done yourself some good by getting Brandon Spikes. Denver Broncos, I talked about the arms race between them and New England. New England gets Revis, and they're making all those moves, and they add Browner. The Broncos lose Decker. So what do? Go out, get Emmanuel Sanders, 3 years, $15 million. A little controversy with this deal. Did he verbally agree and give a handshake to the Chiefs? Didn't he? Look, all of that is irrelevant. And yeah, that side of the business is real shady. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors with agents and their handlers with these teams. They tell you, yeah, I like your deal. You got a deal. They take your number, give it to another team, try to up the value of their player, and then get a new deal. And so, yeah, it's a shady way to do business. But at the end of the day, Emmanuel Sanders is a Denver Bronco, 3 years, $15 million. He said, it's like being a wide receiver, having playing with Peyton Manning. We're going to find out if, in fact, he is the newest Angel in Denver or not. We'll see. Washington Redskins re-signed Brandon Merriweather to their football team. Redskins desperately need help at the safety position. He was there last year. He's a solid guy, someone that you don't mind having in rotational depth. But as a starter, I don't know if he's a guy that you necessarily want starting on your football team. We'll see. Redskins really don't have any options at the safety position right now. So Brandon Merriweather coming back is, I guess, a welcome addition back to the football team if you're a Redskins fan. But you really need to upgrade that position if you are the Washington Redskins. You look at the New York Jets. Calvin Pace, 2 years, $5 million deal. Rex Ryan was livid for missing out on Revis first, then missing out on Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. So he struck out twice. And Calvin Pace is a guy that got double-digit sacks last season, and that came out of nowhere. I mean, Calvin Pace 4 years ago got you double-digit sacks. The Calvin Pace of the last 3 seasons or so, not even close to double-digit sacks. So last year was a huge season for him, but the dominance of that defensive front helped everybody. He was one of the guys that benefited from that dominant defensive front of Copels, Wilkerson, and the young guy Sheldon Richardson. They were dominant up front. He benefited, got double-digit sacks off the edges, and so they couldn't afford to let this guy walk away. He knows Rex Ryan's system and what Rex is looking for from him. And so Calvin Pace is going to be a New York Jet again in 2014. You look at the Seattle Seahawks. Stephen Hauschka, 3 years, $9.15 million. This was one of those foregone conclusions as well. He wasn't going anywhere. Seahawks weren't going to allow him to walk. My question, much like Ben Tate, what took you so long? Why did you have to wait until day 4, day 5, day 6 to get this done? This guy should have been signed. He was a key part of your run to the Super Bowl, integral in you winning many of your football games in 2013. I don't understand why it took so long. But at the end of the day, that's irrelevant. He's back as a Seahawk. We move on. New Orleans Saints signed Zach Strief to a 5-year, $20.5 million deal. Interesting story here that has nothing to do with Zach Strief in terms of him signing back with the team. I was talking to a Saints fan about 2 weeks ago when I dropped their free agency preview video, and he said to me, we're bringing back Zach Strief and we're letting Brian De La Puente get out of here. And I said, hey, what are you talking about? In the video, I had made a comment saying that the Saints value the interior of their line more so than the edges that tackle, and that's proven to be a fact. It's a known fact that Drew Brees, because of his height, needs to have the ability to step up in the pocket, have passing lanes. So the interior of the line is more important to them than the edges. So this is why a guy like Jermon Bushrod has been allowed to walk and test free agency and move on to Chicago last season. And so I was thinking they were going to do the same thing to Zach Strief. And the guy was like, you're wrong about this. We don't care about Brian De La Puente. He was terrible last year. I won't say he was terrible. I didn't think he was that bad. The guy said, no, he was terrible last year. We don't want him back. Zach Strief is going to be back, however. And Brian De La Puente can take a hike. And I was like, well, I don't know if he was that bad. I thought he was he was a little iffy in the passing game. I thought he played well in the run game, but he left a lot to be desired in the passing game. But I didn't know if they were going to let him walk and keep Zach Strief. But that Saints fan was dead on the money. They kept Zach Strief, and Brian De La Puente is still dangling out there in free agency, and they look like they have no intentions of re-signing him. So that Saint fan knew his team, Zach Strief, back on this Saints roster. 5 years, $20.5 million. Tampa Bay Buccaneers continue their assault on the free agency period. Add 2 more players to the mix. Dane Fletcher, 1 year, $2 million deal. Look, you lose your special teams ace. You lose your fiend on special teams. You got to replace him. Okay? That's how it goes in this league. You got to have 2. Buccaneers lost one of them in free agency, Adam Hayward, to the Washington Redskins. So what do? They go to New England and get Dane Fletcher and bring him in to replace the fiend that they lost. Good move by Tampa Bay. They are revamping this team. Speaking of which, O'Neal Cousins coming over from Cleveland at the guard position, going to help them revamp this offensive line. They're trading players away. They don't re-sign Donald Penn. And so, I tell you what, this Buccaneers team is going to look vastly different. I mean, vastly different. And Lovie Smith and Jason Light have come in and cleaned house and turned this roster over, seems like overnight. And so they're adding more players, and they add 2 more in free agency, Dane Fletcher and O'Neal Cousins. And O'Neal Cousins is going to get an opportunity to start. He's going to come in, compete, and he's got an opportunity to start along that offensive line. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they bring back one of their veteran backup offensive linemen in Guy Wimper. He's going to be back on the roster with the team in 2014. You look at the Cincinnati Bengals, Vincent Ray, linebacker that they tendered, did the Cincinnati Bengals, and I thought it was a smart move. I thought he was one of their better linebackers last season, and when they had a rash of injuries, he stepped in, made some huge plays down the stretch, and helped them make a push to not only win that division, but to get a home playoff game. And so I thought he was instrumental in their success defensively down the stretch. They rewarded him. He's going to be back for at least another 2 seasons in Cincinnati. Great move to re-sign Vincent Ray. And so those are your moves over the last few days in free agency. I let the moves accumulate. There you have it. Now let's get into some storylines. And I talked about Hakeem Nicks in Indy. I am fascinated right now with the dynamic in Carolina, because Dave Gettleman is creating ways to piss people off in Carolina. We know I'm not going back down the Steve Smith road. We've already explored that numerous times. The fact that this team has been gutted and losing a lot of free agents, and look, their cap situation was a mess. And I think we all kind of saw this coming because of what we thought last season was going to be for Carolina and what it ended up being, 2 different things. So you can kind of understand why they are in dire straits the way they are. But to have a guy like Hakeem Nicks, who played his college football in North Carolina, a guy that you were familiar with, you were around that front office when he was drafted in New York, you being a New York guy yourself in Gettleman, for you to have that kind of relationship with Hakeem Nicks should be pretty easy for you to get him to come to Carolina. For you to tell him in so many words, hey man, I'd love to have you here, and here's the deal. Sign it if you like, but I'm going to tell you this. You'd probably be better served going to Indy. What? What? Say what? You better off where? A team with no receivers, no Ted Ginn, no Steve Smith, no Dominic Hickson, no Brandon LaFell, no receivers? He's better off where? Are you stupid? Now look, that might be one of those situations where, hey, I'm looking out for the player's best interest. If it is, kudos to you, okay? That's something you rarely see in the National Football League. A GM, a coach, a front office generally looking out for the best interest of another player that doesn't play for them. That rarely happens. But how about looking for the best interest of your franchise that you're currently the GM of? That looks like they're on a crash course for a 5-11 season. How about you help those guys out? I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But whatever the case, Hakeem Nicks ends up taking that advice, going to Indy, signing with the Colts. And yeah, he's probably right. It is a better move for him because Andrew Luck and that offense is way more advanced than where Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers are right now, especially with no weapons around him. And I think I kind of get what Gettleman is doing. Look, I don't have any money. I'm not even going to play myself. I'm just going to try to build this team through the draft. There you have it. I'll put my thumbprint on this team. I'll build it through the draft like I did last year with the defensive line. I'm just going to have to get 2 or 3 receivers in the draft this year. So be it. So I think that's what he's doing, but boy, is he going about it all the wrong way. So let's move on to some more storylines. Deshaun Jackson worried about his uncertain future in Philadelphia, and he should be. I'm not a guy that likes to see players being greedy. You get fed, you bring your plate up to the front office, and they stuff it full of green. Take your plate full of green, go to the table, and sit down and shut up and eat your greens, okay? You got paid already once, but it wasn't enough. You jumped the line again with your plate full of green and asked for more money. You put your plate back up there and said, can I have some more greens, please? No, I still got other people to play. I got to pay Riley Cooper. I got to pay other guys on this roster. I got to pay Jeremy Maclin. No, you can't have any more greens. Your plate is already full. And yet you want to bring it back up there. It's already overrunneth. And you want to bring your plate up. Can I have some more green, please? No, you can't have any more greens. I don't care that you're living a reckless lifestyle, spending money on rap videos, and you can't rap, you're terrible, and you want to get robbed. And look, I'm not saying that it's okay that you got robbed, but you hang around the type of people you hang around, you flaunt with all this flashy jewelry and let everybody know I'm stunting and I got all this money. Yeah, people are going to try to rob you. All right, not saying that it's the right thing to do, not saying that you asked for it, but you asked for it. So look, what you do outside of football and off the field is your business. Don't make it my business though, okay? When you start being greedy and want to bring your plate that's already full of money back to the table and say, here, can I have some more green, please? You're making your bad and poor decisions financially off the field my problem on the field, and I'm not going to stand for it. Yeah, you should be worried about your future in Philadelphia because, frankly, I'm getting tired of your shenanigans. You're a very talented player. But as far as I'm concerned, so is Riley Cooper, so is Jeremy Maclin, so is a guy that we can go out and draft in the 2014 draft to take your spot so we can release you. So what I'm saying to you is you should be worried. And if you get to stay on this roster, you better count your blessings and you better stay out my face and stop asking me for more money, buddy. And so Deshaun Jackson should be worried. Now I say this much. I said all of that to say this. If he gets released, there will be 10 teams beating down his door for his services. The guy is ultra talented. He's just negligent with his money off the field, which leads him to want to be greedy on it. And the only person in this league that gets to be greedy, and we call him smart for being greedy, is Darrell Revis. Everybody else, take your money and shut up. Look at Matt Schaub on the trading block. Let me ask you this. What sense does it make to trade for Matt Schaub, who is due to make $11 million? What sense? You need to wash your face if you think that's a smart trade. Now, the Raiders are interested, so are the Browns. Let me let you in on a secret, Raiders and Browns. Come here, come close. Closer. They're going to release him if nobody trades for him. So why would you want to pick up an $11 million tab on a guy that's a backup on a team that's probably going to release him? I'll let you think about that. Ponder that one for a second while I move on to the next storyline. Jared Allen on his way to Dallas. Is he going to sign with them? I don't know. Jerry Jones is a joke. I don't know what he's going to do. Jared's already laid down the law. He's already said, look, I don't have to play football. I've made enough money, and I'm a free-spirited guy. I don't have to play football anymore, man. I love life. I got other things that I want to do. If I don't get the right deal, if I don't get a number that is fair market value for a guy that's averaged 13 sacks over the life of his career, if I can't get what I think I deserve, then I'm done, man. So if Dallas can't offer me what I'm looking for, if Seattle isn't going to offer me what I'm looking for, deuces, I'm out. I'm done. And I don't blame Jared Allen, man. Look, there's a premium that you pay for guys that can get to the quarterback in this league. If J-Pap can get 3 years, 30, if DeMarcus can essentially get 2 years, 20, which is 10 a pop for both of those guys, hey, where's my money? I'm getting just as many sacks as these guys. I got more sacks than both of those guys combined last year. Where's my money at? I hear you loud and clear, Jared. Hey, I hear you loud and clear, man. Moving on to the next storyline. Jim Irsay out there tripping in Indianapolis. The man needs help. Somebody close to the situation came out and said, this guy needs help in the worst way right now. And looking at his mugshot, he looks a little thinner. He looks like a guy that is screaming for some help. I hope he gets the help that he needs. He's facing 4 felony charges. If you don't know, now you know. The guy was arrested over the weekend for driving under the influence of a controlled substance, and he was intoxicated. And he was in possession of a controlled substance, and so it just isn't good for him right now. He needs help. And you know the league is going to discipline him for this, and Roger is not going to stand for an owner of one of his 32 franchises in his league acting out in such a way that it brings and casts a negative light on the National Football League. He's just not going to allow it. And Jim Irsay, he's already divulged to us a while back that he had a problem with prescription painkillers before. So this isn't anything that's new. I just think it's an ongoing battle for him, and I hope he gets the help that he needs. You really hate to see guys spiral out of control, but some of those Twitter rants and some of those outbursts that he had, maybe there's something more to that now. Maybe we're starting to learn more about who Jim Irsay really is, and all I can do is hope that this guy gets the help that he needs, because you hate to see guys spiral out of control like this. And hopefully he's got someone near him that can urge him to get the help that he probably needs. You look at Teddy Bridgewater. Oh no, Theodore, what are you doing, man? See, this is why I'm a fan, okay, of participating at the combine. This is why I'm a fan of competing at the combine. You know why? Because you get 2 chances at it. You get 2 cracks to impress one time. You don't got to impress me twice. I just want you to do it once, because you got to trust the process, all right? And the process means going back and doing your due diligence, watching the tape, seeing what you like, what you don't like. And if you go out and perform at the combine and say you stink it up, guess what you can say? I still got my pro day. But guess what happens when you don't perform at the combine? You leave everybody in suspense for your pro day, and you go and you stink it up at your pro day. Guess what happens? You leave the stench of the funk that you leave at your pro day lingering in the minds of all the GMs, all the scouts, all of the people who were there to watch you. It's lingering in their minds. Man, that was very unimpressive. You laid a stinker at your pro day today. And I don't feel bad for you, Theodore. I don't. Because you did this to yourself. All right? And I watched the pro day. Man, it was bad. It was bad. I mean, it was really bad. I mean, some simple throws. When do guys ever mess up their pro days? I mean, it's scripted. You've been practicing it. It's at your facility with your receivers. It doesn't get any easier than a pro day. I mean, you set it up. You set up all the throws. You set up all the things that were going to be on the regimen for that particular day. How do you mess that up? Now, You can call it nerves if you want. I should just say the guy, I've never been that impressed with Teddy Bridgewater. Never been a Theodore guy. Never. And so all he did was reinforce what I thought. He's extra regular, okay? Theodore is extra regular. There's nothing wrong with being extra regular except making him the #1 overall draft pick in the draft. That's it. Just don't be the #1 pick. Someone will take Theodore in the middle of the first round. Someone will take Theodore at the back half of the first round. Someone will take Theodore in the second round. I don't know how far his stock plummets after that performance at his pro day. But I do know this. You brought it on yourself, Theodore. You brought it on your... Who performs at their pro day with a wristwatch on? That's it for the weekend recap here in the lab room for free agency in the National Football League. Days 4 through 7. That's a wrap. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Thank you for joining me. Have a good one. And you'll see this pretty face very, very soon. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.
In the lab room.